Hello and welcome to Thriving in Business with myself, Kirsty Waite. And I'm coming to spend the next 15 minutes with you to talk all about businesses and creating an intentional business that feels good and profitable. So today's episode, I'm very, very excited. So today I'm joined by the lovely Louise Shanahan. Louise is the founder of the Copy Perscription, a healthcare copywriter. And not only is she the loveliest person, she's also one of the most smartest, intentional business ladies that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So welcome, Louise.
Hello. Oh, wow. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited to have you here. So, as you know, what I come and talk about is creating an aligned business where people can thrive and feel good. And I bring people on here to talk about their business and how they've managed to create this. And I know from you that this is a really very intentional thing for you. So would you like to just briefly explain who you are and what you do for those people that haven't come across you yet?
Yeah, definitely. So, as you mentioned, I'm a freelance health and medical copywriter. So, I work mostly with medical and biotech and healthcare organizations to help them communicate their discoveries and their latest research and their work in a way that will help them connect with people who would benefit from those things. So, I mostly write website copy, white papers, articles, reports, anything like that, you name it. So shall I say a little bit about how I ended up doing this? Would that be helpful?
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so because I think it's quite interesting. I think when people focus on, if you're starting a business and you're thinking about what you want to focus on, if you're a copywriter, if you focus on a particular niche, and I ended up focusing on health, but the health part actually came first for me. I had worked in government for about 10 years before I started my own business, so I kind of had that experience of having the more traditional career in the 9-to-5 job. And I worked in a lot of public health roles when I was there. So when it came to making the decision to take the leap and start my own business, that's kind of why I ended up working in health. So the health part came first.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's normally the other way around. So what made you take that leap then? What made you go from that traditional working environment to creating your own business?
Well, actually, I suppose it goes a bit further back. I had a health scare when I just finished university. So just when I graduated, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and happily all the treatment was fine. I'm all fine now. But I had ended up temping and taking a temporary job just while I had the treatment and stuff. And so fast forward 10 years, and I was kind of in this job on this career path that was fine. It was a good job, but it wasn't really what I had chosen. And I always had this feeling in the back of my mind that, like, when I grow up, what am I going to be? And so although it was a good job, it just never felt like the intentional choice.
Yeah.
So when I always had this feeling that I'd like to have my own business and do my own thing. And I suppose I was thinking about this sort of Venn diagram of my skills and experience and expertise. And at that point, obviously, I had this passion for health, which came from my personal experience. And I also had my professional experience. I had a master's in health policy as well. So when I kind of put all of that together and all the writing work that I'd been doing, it kind of made sense, and it just kind of popped out. And I thought, oh, I really like this idea of bringing together my skills and experience and interest into this career where I can still have an impact and help these organizations and businesses to help people lead healthier lives, whatever that looks like for them, and maybe do that in a way that really suits me and what I want to do on a day-to-day basis as well. So
Yeah.
how that happened.
Yeah, and I love that you're taking all those passions and bringing them together, because ultimately that's what makes us thrive and in alignment with ourselves.
Yeah.
So when you think about when you created that business, what was it that you were really looking for to get out of it? What was it that was the driving force? Was it your life balance? Was it what you were doing each day? What was that you were looking for?
I think it was kind of a combination of that. I really had become interested in this concept of copywriting, and I really was keen on going down that route. I'd done a lot of behavior change work, and I really liked the idea of bringing that sort of psychology and empathy and writing together and doing something related to health. So that was kind of how I ended up focusing on health copywriting. In terms of running the business, it was really just being in charge of my own destiny and being able to decide how I spend each day, decide who I'm going to work with, what services I'm going to do, and just decide, just be in charge of everything, really.
Yeah.
Not having to answer to someone else. And also to have the opportunity to work on lots of different projects at the same time. So I really like novelty and change and things like that. So it was really exciting to me to be able to imagine working with people all around the world and kind of get a sneak peek behind their businesses as well.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Yeah. So when you think about creating a thriving business, and I think there's, like, I always talk about like the recipe and the mix that goes in, and there's so many different elements to it. And I think equally that is different for each person. So what does a thriving business look and feel like for you?
That's a good question. I think it's something that feels easy, which is maybe, I don't know if that's not the right answer, but there is no right answer, is there?
No.
When you just feel like everything is in alignment, you know exactly what you want to get out of your business, who you want to be working with, and it feels like it's successful, or it feels like it's thriving when you are doing that, when you're working with clients that you really get on with, on projects where you feel like you're really adding something and doing your best work, and at the same time, each day just kind of go through this nice process, not too stressful, you know, I suppose. So it's that sense of ease that everything's just kind of clicking together.
Yeah. And you know yourself, as we all do when we first start a business, it can sometimes, we don't have that alignment, we don't have that thrivingness, and we can go through that stage of going, how do I just figure all this out? Of like, you've got all the passion and the drive, but sometimes you know yourself, it's ebbs and flows, isn't it? And I think in the beginning, it can feel a little bit messy. So at what point on that process or journey into your business did you become incredibly intentional about creating that thriving business? Because I know from experience of working with you, you are so intentional about creating this, and you've achieved it, and I think it's amazing, but you are incredibly intentional. So what part of your journey did you kind of go, okay, I need to start creating this now?
I think probably from the very first point of starting my own business, I knew I had to be intentional because, you know, obviously one of the main reasons that we work is to make money, but there are lots of ways to do that. So why choose this path? So it wasn't really money that was the driver there. So I was quite clear from the beginning that I had other intentions around how I wanted the business to look and that I wanted it to be a success. So I think right from the start, I was quite deliberate about the kind of work that I wanted to do, the kind of clients that I wanted to work with, the fact that I wanted flexibility around my time. So I think I was able to build in certain processes from the start that would allow me to do that, making sure I had enough time for projects, making sure I always used contracts and get deposits up front, and all these kind of things that feel like small details, but are actually really important to help you run the business the way you want to do it and make it all feel a bit easier. I mean, it is a process, so I don't want it to sound like I just straight out the gate, it was easy.
I think being very aware of it and intentional about it from the off isn't always the case, is it? Because I think sometimes, especially coming out of a career, we've never had to think of those things before and do it for ourselves. So sometimes it takes a little while. So the fact that you were aware to go, right, this is how I really want to do it, and went through that process of trying to create it, I think is great. But like you say, it is the little things, and it's those little tiny steps that all create that feeling of ease and flow, isn't it? So when you say you want it to feel easy, by creating those structures that might be hard at the time or feel like, oh, like I really don't know what to do, or I can't do this, but actually just persevering and working through it and creating that process makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
And I think when I think what that leads to is more fulfillment in what we're doing. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I think, well, we talk about our finding work that's in our zone of genius a lot, don't we? That's the phrase that you hear a lot. I quite like, and I'm not sure where I heard this, the idea of a zone of joy as well. And so it's not just about finding work or finding activities or projects where you are doing your best work, you're using your skills and experience, and you're delivering a great product for your client, which
Mhm.
hopefully is the given, but it's also what do you actually really enjoy, and what helps you thrive, what lights you up each day, what are you excited to do, not just what work can I do, what work can I do well, but also where does that cross over with what I really enjoy doing and what I find really fulfilling.
That's really, really important, because I think the energy that you bring, if something feels fun and joyful, you coming at it with a completely different energy, and that energy passes on to your client. Like, that radiates out of you, doesn't it? And I think to create a business where people can thrive and feel aligned for the long haul and to make it last, I think there has to be an element of fun and joy in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in the world of health as well. It's such a personal thing. And it doesn't, I don't know, something doesn't feel right. If you were to be just kind of going through the motions, putting in the hours, you have to be passionate about something like this, or you're not going to make that connection with people that you're looking for. And, you know, a lot of the clients that I work with are people who are in labs, and, you know, they're working on these painstaking projects that take years, and there has to be an element of passion there for them to keep going with that. And I kind of just want to meet that and thrive off that energy too.
So how do you create those little bits of joy in your business then? What does that look like to you?
I mean, the first part is about finding the clients that you want to work with and the projects and things like that, and finding joy in the work that you're doing. But then also, I think you can build in little snippets of fun throughout your day or throughout your week by maybe doing unexpected things. Maybe you have something fun in your email footer that's a bit unexpected, or maybe you have, I don't know, maybe you have a video that you share with clients when you're saying thank you at the end, you know, something that's just a little bit different, that feels a bit more fun. It doesn't all have to be, you know, in a suit and tie. If you're creating your own business, you can make it whatever you want. And so that's everything from your copy to the way that you interact with clients. And I think as well, you know, if you work on your own a lot as well, which I do, then you want to have a bit of fun by meeting other people so that you don't get completely lonely. That's the way that I've tried to do it.
And I think it's remembering that business doesn't have to be serious all the time. Because I think so often we get stuck with this stereotype of professional and business and what you should and shouldn't do. Whereas I think if you just remind yourself, like, this is what you're creating, you can create anything you want. And if that's fun and joyful, that's what you're going to attract, and that's what your clients are going to know you for. And that makes you feel nice.
Exactly. And it makes it fun and easy for them too. If you are enjoying what you're doing and you've got all your systems and things like that.
It's contagious, isn't it? And I think if they know what they're getting from you, you've got your processes, they know how you operate, it feels good to them, they're going to enjoy that process as well as you. And I think we were just chatting offline before about creating that balance, because I know autonomy was so key for you in creating your business and having that flexibility in the time. And that's equally, I completely agree, that's aligned with what I wanted to create as well, my business. And we were chatting about how do we create that. And I think it's really important as well to understand that it's different for different people, and you're okay if you want to operate slightly different. And and like, balance to me is each day doing something little. So it could be, I might work on a weekend, but I might have a late start on a Monday. But that's okay, because that works for me. Whereas I know other people might hate working weekends and never do it. But I think it's recognizing that whatever balance works for you, embrace that. So how did you find your balance?
I'm not sure that I have entirely. No.
Is it work in progress?
It's definitely a work in progress. But I think, like we were saying before, I think that sort of ebbs and flows. I think I'm someone who really enjoys being quite busy and having a lot on at certain times, and then easing off and having a bit more kind of space around what I'm doing. One of the things that we talked about before when we were working together, which made a huge difference for me, was the idea of having floating space in my week. So before, I would end up just kind of booking in work, blocking out time for my marketing activities and the business admin side of things and finance and all of that as well, and not really having any space left in the week. But I have always found that especially with writing, or if you're doing creative work, you do need a little bit of flexibility around your time. You know, you could say, oh, it'll take me 3 hours to write this thing, but actually I need to go out for a walk. I need to let the ideas percolate a bit. So having that floating time in my week has been really helpful. And it just kind of spreads out. Sometimes I use it up with client work, and I probably shouldn't, but just the idea of it, having that permission, giving yourself permission to have a bit more flexibility in the way you work has been really helpful.
And I think that permission bit is so huge, isn't it? And it's a mindset shift. And I think from looking at it as free time, you automatically think if you've got a free day, you have to fill it with work. Whereas if you think of it as creative time and floating space where you can allocate it as and when you need, it's a little bit of a different view of that time. It's not empty that needs filling. It's creative time where you can fill it creatively, however that works and looks like.
And the thing is, when you're running a business, there will always be more that you can be doing. There's always more to do. So if you start thinking, I need to get through all of this stuff, you'll never have any free time. So it's kind of flipping it around to think, well, why did I start this business in the first place? Probably not to work 24/7. But also understanding that free time or floating time is essential to how you run your business, and it's really important. So that has been really helpful.
And when I work with clients, as you know, like I think for me, the whole we need to start at the foundations. So I always start back of like, why are you doing this? Like, what are your values? Like, what are your intrinsic core values? And how can we create a business around this? So what are your core values, and how do you make sure that you bringing them into the day-to-day of your business?
So this is an interesting one, because I think throughout the time where I've been working for myself, I've done loads of courses and things like that, and this concept of having values often pops up, and I've kind of thought about it, but it's never really stuck. And I think like when we work together, we kind of dug into like, what do these values actually mean, and how are you using them, and what are the consequences of not paying attention to them when you're making decisions, has kind of flipped the switch for me. So so the values that I think about now are freedom or autonomy, kind of two sides to the same coin. Ease, which I mentioned before. Excellence, because I always want to be doing the best work possible.
Literally the highest achieving lady I've met.
And connection is another one. So what has been really interesting is thinking about how those values play off against each other, because sometimes they might be a little bit at odds. And one thing that, as you know, I've tended to veer towards the excellence one, which is a little bit of a reframing of like being a bit obsessive about making sure that I do absolutely everything for the client. And that's, sometimes if you lean too much into that one, then the freedom value is the one that kind of gets compromised a bit. And the other thing that's been quite interesting is thinking about, if you're too focused on some of the values, then you kind of make a trap for yourself. So freedom is this idea of an autonomy trap. I don't know if you kind of have heard of that, but this idea where, you know, I have created this business so that I'm in charge, I get to decide what I do. But if I focus too much on that, then I'm not going to outsource anything. It puts me off hiring a PA or, you know, whatever that's going to be. I feel like I have to do everything myself, and that gets really stressful. So having the kind of mix of values and understanding how they all fit together is really helpful. You know, when it comes to deciding what should I do next in my business, do I want to take on this new project? If I'm not sure about the decision, I can look at my values and think, does this tick off any of these boxes? I pick up the decision. And then equally, if there are times where I think, oh, I'm really struggling with this thing, this is on my mind all the time, I can think, well, is it because it's not in alignment with one of these values? Something is not right, something's off, and I can't quite figure out what it is. And usually when I look at those values, then I start to think, oh, it's because I have a connection that I'm looking for or something like that.
I love that, because that's the whole purpose of looking at your values. Like, our intrinsic values are us to the core, and when we're not in line with them or we're at odds with them, that's when we start to feel out of kilter and something isn't aligned. But unless we do the work to articulate what those are and why these are important to us, it's really difficult to actually go, well, why am I feeling like this? Why does this not feel easy? Why does this not feel like I should be doing this and aligned to what I want. But absolutely, I think just checking in and going, yeah, what's going on here, and being curious is really a key part of running a business, I think.
Yeah.
And interestingly, when you were saying about freedom there's so much around freedom, isn't there? And I talk a lot about, because I think when people want freedom, they think the ultimate freedom where they can drop the business, they can pick up and move the business when they want, and they can rearrange their week whenever they want. But when we have that level of ultimate, when there's no processes, that doesn't give you freedom, because as soon as you stop operating in your business doesn't bring in any money. So it stops working. So to create the freedom that we want, we have to put some process and support in to allow us to adapt and flow as we want to. So if we want to go and travel and work from wherever, we can, because we've got processes that will remain the same, whether we in London or New York. Like, we know the process. So if we onboard somebody, it's the same process, rather than going like, right, well, what do I need to do now? Like, how do we move that? Or equally, you can get a VA in to go, right, can you do this part of this process while I'm off traveling? And it gives you that ability to flex and move your business, and it becomes fluid. And then that allows the flexibility that you're looking for. But I think it's important to articulate what freedom really means to you, because that is such a personal thing, and it can mean different things to different people very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so right. You do need to have that discipline in order to have freedom. Because I think, we talk a lot about, if you think of working for yourself, one of the advantages is that, I get to plan my day. I can plan my day however I want. Yeah, you actually have to plan your day, though.
You have to do the planning.
Yeah, exactly. You can make it however you want it to be, but you do actually have to think about it. And it's the same with having goals and things like that as well. If, I don't know, people maybe feel differently about setting goals, whether they're long-term goals or short-term goals or financial goals or whatever it is. That's going to be different for everyone. But I do think it's helpful to have some intention. Otherwise, things just kind of plod along. And maybe that's fine, but maybe you want it to look differently, and it won't just happen by accident. You do have to be intentional about how you build this.
That's it. And I think sitting and hoping and praying that it's just going to figure out, that you're never going to leave that. You're always going to have that feeling of like, am I going to get business this month? Like, am I going to hit my goals? Am I going to be able to take a holiday in the summer? Am I going to be able to have time off? And it's, if you become intentional and just create that and make it happen, then it will happen. Yeah.
And that's really empowering, isn't it? Because in a way, you can't fail at this. There's always something else that you can do. You can make a plan, you can solve a problem, whatever it is, even if it's pivoting something completely different, there's always something else that you can do. It's completely within your power to make those decisions. So I find that quite reassuring as well.
Yeah, it is, because it sits with us, it sits at source. And whilst I understand there's so much that goes on in the world that is out of our control, how we show up every day, how we plan our business is within our control. And that's empowering, because it sits with us. Well, that might sound scary, it's all on us, but equally it's empowering, because we have the choice. Like, we can choose to show up and do whatever it is we want to do in a way that we want to do it.
Yeah, even if something goes terribly wrong and you think, oh, how am I going to get out of this mess? You can always think, okay, how am I going to stop this from happening again in future? There's always something else that you can do to respond and change your way that you respond to it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have that control, don't you, of how you respond. So, looking back to young Louise and where you are now, if you had to give your younger self one bit of advice for this journey, what would it be?
I think it's important what I would say to myself is that you have to settle into the process and enjoy the process, and be patient with it, and appreciate that it's not all going to happen at once. And if you're just starting a business from scratch, you don't know how to do this yet. So don't compare yourself to someone who's 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead. That will be you one day. But right now, you have to just make the plans, follow through, be consistent, be patient, and trust that if you stick to that, then it will work out eventually.
It will.
So yeah, being patient and not overcomplicating things might be another one.
Yeah, lots of good advice. And I think a lot of people listening can also take so much from that and look at where you are now. And it's achievable for everybody, isn't it? It's just that consistency, that intention, and just showing up and doing it. And yeah, that will be you one day. And this is you. This is you now, Louise. So what's the future for you? What's the future for your business? What's in the future for you?
Well, do you know, I'm actually quite happy with how things are right at the moment. I'm just trying to continue to build on the processes that are allowing me to do the work that I want, hopefully working with more great clients. I would hope to have a little bit more space in my diary this year than I had last year. So I'm trying to work on the time management side of things. But yeah, other than that, I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing. So I don't really have any big plans to change that right now. So that feels like a good place to be.
Yeah, that does. That sounds like a really nice place to be. It's good.
Yeah.
And so if people listening want to come and find you and check you out, because you also have a really cool podcast for freelancers, don't you?
Yes.
So you want to share where people can come and find you?
Yeah, so you can find out more about my copywriting business at thecopyprescription.com. And the podcast is for freelancers. It's called 15-Minute Freelancer. And that is a weekly-ish podcast, which lets you see behind the scenes in life as a freelancer. And you can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Louise Shanahan _.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much, Louise. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And I'm sure
Thank you so much
people listening will have got so much out of listening to your story of your business. So thank you so much and take care. And I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.